Hello, welcome to Tug of Heart, Episode 6, Heartbeat, Creative Ways to the Heart, with Marianne and Lori.
Hi, Marianne. How are
Hi,
you doing?
Lori. So today we look at this idea of heartbeat and rhythm and creativity. And oftentimes we hear people now talking about that the heart has an intelligence, right? There is a
Yes,
mind to the heart.
I like that.
But in thinking about this week's program, what I came to is that the heart also has a womb. It has a space for new life to be created. And the heartbeat, which originates in the womb, right, in the mother's womb, that the type of creation that we're talking about is really infused with the principles of divine feminine, right? Because
Right.
as human beings, it is our gift to be creative, but we can use creativity to gain power. We can use creativity for greed. We can use creativity to do a lot of damage.
Right.
The kind of creativity we're talking about today is a creativity that has been inspired by love and is willing to beat to that rhythm and to somehow create something in the world that then is of the good. That's how I'm kind of
Yes.
working with
I
it in my
that's it's
mind.
good when we come to these talks, we don't do a whole lot of pre-talk because we like this to be more of the exchange, but it's very very in line with my thinking. To recap the ways to the heart, because now we're going to try to infuse creativity. They were will or intention, a prayer, meditation, which could also be ritual or communion, virtue or ethical action, introspection, reason, inspiration or self examination, and whimsy, which is very, very relevant in what we're talking about today. But now we're talking about, so why creativity?
Right.
What's the point of that? To begin with, as I was approaching creativity, of course, I go to my history with it and what it means to me. And one of the things I thought of was when we were children, I don't remember being as bored as I hear children sometimes say today. I don't remember my parents being as bored as I sometimes feel today. At least not that they shared with me. In fact, we would almost not dare be bored because that implied a dull mind. I can remember very vaguely, I don't know how it was worded, but essentially a person with a solid mind, a creative mind, is one who could sit at a bus stop for hours and not be bored. This is pre-iPhone, books, maybe a book in your pocket or handbag, maybe a journal, but still that was the implication, and I think it was accurate.
Well, because what it says is that it values imagination.
Right.
There is a value, this precious commodity in being human is that we can imagine and create story, and from story create adventure and create new things. So that is a value that maybe has somehow got, brushed aside.
I love what you just said about imagination, and the word you're repeating is create, create, create. Imagination is really when we've tapped into that mysterious, dark place of ours, the subconscious. So, not quite the heart, but the subconscious, of course, linked to the heart also. The reason I think there's plenty of people creative today, so much creativity in many ways. Very rich, but we also have a culture that can afford the time for creativity, the resources, some of the necessities. But it also happens that I feel like the great plague of our society today is what you could call ennui, which is ENNUI, boredom. But it's a specific type of boredom in that it's a discontent, almost like we're discontent with excessive satiation, if that makes sense.
So-
Sounds backwards, but I know it to be true.
So is it what you're saying? It's like the constant seeking for the thrill of, and it just kind of,
And it will disappoint because we're not
Right.
made simply for that. We're made much more profoundly and for much higher reasons than feeling
right.
or immediate feeling, all the more. So you get this ennui or boredom, and it's like general discontent, weariness. As you do things, you see people with jobs kind of walking slow, dragging their feet, but then there's these other kind of people too. One of the things I thought about for a creative mind or people that don't have ennui, I pictured you actually at Spark Elementary, your school, and you just burst out into song.
Yes,
What?
I love that.
She's at work. What? We just got our butts reamed by a couple parents, whatever, and you're like, whoa,
Opera.
opera,
No less.
ah, some song or whatever. There's a guy in New York City, Steve told me about. You have crossing guards, you have police. Some of them are like, yeah, go. Hey, I said stop. Then there's the guy who's dancing, break dancing, directing traffic, boom, and they're going. He's not bored. You can't fake that all day. That's genuine, and that's his heart's in it, we could say, right? When you're teaching like that and singing, your heart's into what you're doing. And this is what we're kind of headed towards, which includes this list, but with creativity.
Right. So now it's interesting because there's also this idea of with the heartbeat and finding our way into the creative heart, which I think is just, it's natural for the heart to be creative. There's also a certain rhythm
That's
that
right.
needs to sync up
That's
because
right.
when we're anxious, when we are not present or embodied and we're somewhere else, it creates a certain heartbeat that accelerates and
This response that you
right,
feel.
right, and it makes noise within the system, right? It crowds out the quiet that is necessary to begin to move into a rhythm of a little bit, like you said earlier, mysterious, unknown, not quite sure of the
And
outcome.
generally, our hearts, we're talking now the physiological heart.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom,
Yes,
boom, boom.
yes.
It's automatic. We're unaware of it. It beats. We don't have to make the
Yes.
choice. It's one of the autonomic features of being us. Like you said, it accelerates or it stops is when we become aware of it.
Yes.
That's not usually the time you always want to be aware of it. That's pretty inconvenient, as a matter of fact. On your way to being coded, you're like, whoa, heart problem.
right.
And only then are you aware that it had been functioning properly before. So what does that mean in terms of taking it from the natural, or physical, I should say, heart to the metaphysical heart, which is what we're concerned with as we talk here? You have this abhorrence of heart, the physical heart, and that makes you recognize something that you previously just happened, took for granted, maybe didn't eat what you should, abused it. Don't even realize, because you know what? It's gonna maintain that. It's made to do that. It doesn't give us these indications throughout. The metaphysical heart, our innermost being, what we're talking about week after week here, it has the same vital importance in our life, arguably more. And our hope is to recognize that natural rhythm without the aberrance, the absence of it, or acceleration, panic, this emotional response. It at first seemed like a stretch, like part of me knew it feels right to call it a rhythm and a beat. But then I'm thinking, what is this connection? You know how you and I like connections? And I stayed faithful to the idea that it is heartbeat, but how do you stretch that to creativity? And part of it was utilizing what we do to get to the heart and also just a little creativity itself. When you think of rhythm, the first thing that comes to mind for me would be music, obvious. Okay? So you have, in just about any band, you have the bass player, the drums. And without the drumming, there's no music.
Right, it's holding the beat.
It's sound, if you don't have that, guiding it, and that loyalty to that beat. It's sound, or much worse, it's just noise. That would be good. But if you look at a band, each member, you look at the lead guitarist gets all the accolades, whatever. And anything that we find appreciable, it's that he's performing or doing or expressing is in context to that bass or drum that's on set with him.
That's actually very beautiful because for Native Americans, the very first instrument is the drum.
Yes.
And the two beats that they had were the heartbeat
Oh.
and then the steady beat, just the steady beat
okay.
of life. And then from there, other instruments began to be developed, the flute and the rattles. But the drumming speaks to this, both the steady beat of life, right? The one foot in front of the other, and then the heartbeat, which ultimately is the music in the background of our lives. It needs to stay with us as we move through life.
That's right.
And I think that's what you're really talking
That's
about
right.
in this metaphysical sense, that is sort of like our backup singer. Our
Yes.
heart is within us, but we also have this drumming behind us.
Right.
That
The
should
heart would be that provides that rhythm. And it's that tempo, which exists. Beethoven, you can say, well, where's his drummer? There was tempo. When he could not hear tempo, it exists. Whether it's implicit or explicit, it is there in every song. Just to clarify for any naysayer. But the rhythm is meant as a guide for everything else. So what we're talking about metaphysically for man, you want our faculties, our gifts, our talents, our actions, our choices, and the 7 ways to the heart, the will, prayer. We want to express each of them with a loyalty to the rhythm of that heart.
Yes.
And when we do that, we have this good rhythm that because we're being faithful to this idea that it demands accompaniment in the form of expression. Now, to do that, sometimes we have to reach into creativity. Creativity isn't spontaneous necessarily. So going back to the start, we got this rhythm, okay? Now I want to express something with it. This is as far as I can get with this line of thought, and I'm going to rely on you to help me with this part, working it out. I become aware of my heart, the rhythm. I want to respond, or I want to share it with somebody else. In just doing that, that's an inspiration. But that's all I can explain about inspiration at this point in my life. So I thought you could. I have heard you speak of inspiration. So tell me, and then I can move on to creativity, I'm hoping.
So for me, inspiration has 2 parts. It has an aspect that is the emptying, right? So you have to exhale, empty out in order to inhale, right? To bring the inspiration in. So the 7 ways to the heart, that sort of gets you to a threshold, right? And then you're at the threshold of moving into this heart, into the creativity of the heart. And there, what pushes you over?
Okay.
What
that
pushes you into that place of wanting to share, of needing to create. And that to me is this guardian of inspiration that stands at the threshold and within you kind of pushes you forward to reach out, to talk to someone, to express a feeling, an idea that doesn't necessarily have all the words yet. There is something about it that is moving you. So inspiration has a movement to it. We're talking about rhythm. We're talking about beat.
Could I say, I'm writing notes. I didn't mean to interrupt, but could I say, like, could you say, when you say movement, like the call to action?
It is more though.
I'm not going to write that then because I truly don't know.
It is the dance with the divine.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
accepting the dance. It's saying, okay, pull me close. Pull me close and swirl me around and take me across this threshold into creating something that expresses this type of love. So to me, that's the nature of inspiration. It suddenly puts movement to all of it. But key, and it's interesting because a clue to it is what you said in originally asking me just now about it. You said, listen, I know I can feel something in my heart, and then I know I need to connect. This idea of the connection.
Okay.
Because it is about connecting to something more than just our own aloneness here, whether it's to another human being or whether it's our connection to the divine guidance. It's that working together in rhythm with this interconnectedness that I feel then allows to emerge what it is, in fact, that you will create.
I love that. Can I ask some more? Can I?
Yeah,
keep going. Can I corner you on this? Because this is my first time. This is, for some reason, I think I've experienced plenty of inspiration, but I've never actually. That's one of the things, for whatever reason, I haven't spent any time like processing that experience of it. It's connection, and in the same way. We had spoke about, and we will be speaking about, art. So it's an encounter of sorts, the beginning of it.
And
is that right?
I kind of take it as like inspiration holds truth and dare. You know that game? So you touch a truth and you feel it viscerally, or it's moving through you, or you're recognizing it. And then the dare is, what are you going to do with this feeling, this experience, this thing that is coursing through you?
Got it, right.
And so it has this two-part to it. It has touching truth. And in this case, because we are dealing with the heart, it is touching a divine truth, a oneness. It's those moments of, it's just more. It is the awe. And then with that, how do I take this into action? So I see the police guy directing traffic and being fully embodied in the joy of his job. That touches a truth in me. Like, human beings are meant to be alive. No matter what job you have, you can enjoy it. What do I do with that now? Do I
so
leave
inspiration
it on
doesn't. It's not
42nd?
just inspiration can come from within and from without.
Absolutely.
That's what because I was picturing it like from above or within. But you're right. You're right. It could be expressed, and that's
Like
the beauty of
today,
humanity is passing it on.
Today you brought in with you. So Lori brings today to the show. She brings me a pile of journals, a ton of colored gel pens. She knows the way to my creative heart. So I'm looking at it and I actually start like salivating. Like it's delicious to me. These are tools. A tool could be an inspiration.
That's right.
I can't wait to go use these tools. These materials. Oh,
it's a pass it along. I love that because the journals that I got, I actually had basically stamped to put onto discs to turn the pages, like a disc type of book, leftover books I had from your school. and calendars and teachers' planners. And I said, you know what? I'm cutting these down to size, and we're going to use these. I said, for a year or two, we're not purchasing journals to go with our stopping the coffee after our last show, and we had
Yes.
that kind of wake up moment in between. So I was first inspired by unused pages at the back of some books.
Yes.
Which is funny
Yeah.
because I love a blank sheet of paper. I love school
And
supplies.
that
I
is-
just do.
And that is woven in with this other part of you that's about not wanting to waste.
No,
and
I
to,
don't like to.
And to be sustainable and to work like Mother Nature works and take something and compost it and create it into something else that's rich.
Right.
And that is like tapping into the very nature of the divine feminine. That is it.
And
at
so
work in the
creativity
smallest
can
of
be
ways.
in very simple things. But
Absolutely.
for me in that moment, if you want to say creativity, was just in the little stretch of finding a way to use this in, like you said before, a useful and beneficial way for us. Not just, I mean, I could have lit fires with those pages.
Absolutely.
And
Or
maybe
you could
I
have
will with the
thrown them in the
used
trash.
ones. But I didn't want to because I was like, no, these are precious. For me, I feel like maybe the kids' like really good energy was on some of these books. I love that about them. These old calendars, they're being used, covered with extra stickers they haven't used. And so the creativity is just the need to express kind of that mom in me. And I think we do that. I think that is one thing I do. Like I like to reuse stuff and share. That's a mom thing, right? Where
And
we
how-
have to do that.
Well, and we're going back to divine mother, divine womb, because it is, and this is connected beyond gender. All people have this. It is to breathe new life into something that was otherwise seen as dead, as gone, as worthless. What is more inspiring than that capability? It's renewal and transcendence, and it is connection to unending love.
I do like that. And I like this idea of passing it along. And in this instance, between us and me as an adult, it became a little more obvious what to do with the book. I write, you write. I can narrow that down for a usefulness for that creativity. And who might appreciate it. I wanted to tell you one of the things that I had thought about in terms of creativity and moving forward after this into art, but for now we'll stick with the creative aspect. I am mom to 2 boys on the spectrum, different degrees, and one of their amazing gifts. I mean, it's irreversibly precious. There's nothing. If they said, here's a pill to make them non-autistic, wouldn't do it. From my point of view, what I would do for them and what I have exercised in the world was finding a place for them. And that means their creativity. As mom, I can manage quite a bit of it, but more than that, I want them to utilize it in a beneficial way for society, for their neighbors, brothers and sisters, that they will name on their journey and choose, their community. And I want them to be able to always share what's in their heart with the world because I find it valuable and necessary to be shared. So one of the things that I had to do was to find what I call a gatekeeper. So you could go to I could ultimately find gatekeepers in the tech world, in the art world. That's a little down the line, but there needed to be this immediate gatekeeper. Stumbled onto you. I can't even remember because we have some years of experience between us, but I knew it was right and I knew it was you. And every day I've spoke with you, I'm more sure of it. And a gatekeeper even for myself because you hear me talk. I'm also on the spectrum for people that don't know that. So that's why you'll hear the stammering and the sometimes me working out thoughts. And it requires, in some sense, a gatekeeper that can tell me, okay, hold that thought. Go with it. Can you tell me about your end of it?
You know what you did?
Because I'm fumbling to explain it now even.
It's a great question, and you brought that to me in a conversation we had during the week.
I did it briefly so you wouldn't be prepped.
No, and you just said think about that, and I have been thinking about it, and one of the things that I think, if we go back to this idea that there is a threshold
Right.
into
Okay.
creativity, the gatekeeper kind of stands at that threshold, and part of the job goes back to the I see you. Right?
Right.
It's really being able to
Oh my
be
gosh.
discerning
Yes.
about what it is that I see and what it is and whether there is the readiness to cross the threshold.
Okay.
And if not, what needs to be there to support the journey, because it is a journey. But I tried not to go too into my mental thoughts about what it means to be a gatekeeper. So I said, let me do the exercise of exactly what we're talking about. If we in fact trust our heart to be creative, I went into my heart and I said, help me out. What is this gatekeeping thing that Lori is getting at? So I went to one of my journals and I pulled out a piece that I wrote right before my dog Pi died. Now, I had her for 8
Oh my
weeks.
gosh.
I held her in home hospice. And I wrote this piece, and as I'm going to read it, it's short because I feel like it points to this idea that there is a certain death in creativity.
Yes.
We have to put something down, mainly our egos, if we are going to truly fully enter the flow. So do you mind if I read it?
I want to hear it. This is
Okay.
I came here to learn today. Absolutely.
Okay. So this was written while I was in this process with Pi. Today I vow to put into words the silent space of speechlessness, the quiet waiting for the portal of death to open and call Pi through its gateway into the life that comes next. I sit tight, hold the space for the wind to nudge my faithful companion over the threshold. What must I put down to let her go peacefully in her own time? I put down the collar. I put down the leash. I put down the fear of her running in the wrong direction and getting lost. I try to find the words she has buried along with her treats. I try to dig them up from her favorite hiding place behind the blue pillow under the orange blanket of the big, messy Joybird couch. I dig and I find a bone with the words carved in it, the Temple of Pi, where infinite compassion and fierce discernment co-create a home where the faithful and true are always held in the light of the Creator.
I love that. Marianne.
Right? It holds the mystery
and
that
I
we're
always say
talking about.
we leave these messages to ourselves. The more we practice living in heart alignment, the frequency of these kind of things happening is increased by practice. That you said that just solidifies what I knew when I said it, because I told you, and I didn't ask you, do you think? I said, for the show, please consider what it means to be a gatekeeper for creative people to pass through the gate into the appropriate fields on the other side, where there will be reception, hopefully.
Well, right. And one of the things that I get from this, and I don't want us to throw away this very important knowing that you bring, heart knowing, which you have said to me many times, and I am really starting to believe it, is that we leave these clues for ourselves.
Yes, I do.
Along the path. And if we go back, we can see, oh, something in me knew what was coming. Something in me didn't quite understand what this poem was about when I wrote it, but it was important to write. It's the only poem I wrote during Pi's transition, the only moment that I wanted to mark. Why? Because there is something about this moment that is important for going forward. And so, if I look at this as holding some wisdom, this idea of asking the question, what must I put down to enter this gateway of creativity of my heart? What must I put down? Because there is always a putting down. There's always an emptying out, an exhale before the inhale in order to receive. And here, in the metaphor of the poem, it's put down the collar, put down the leash. It's putting down what chokes us, what keeps us back from
Stifles our
running.
voice.
Yes.
Yes.
And those things usually are attached to more of the ego.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good enough. I'm not ready.
and
I'm not.
I strongly have to agree. That's where I've tripped up. I want to say, as you were telling me this story and your thoughts after, spark must really be in my heart this week because I did the journals and thinking now, I'm going back to spark and I'm thinking, as you said, metaphor. You had this idea of spark, this spark in you that burns and that is alive. And I think spark is heart, Marianne.
I do.
In a way, or an aspect of it, but I think it may be synonymous. I have to think about it. I do want to say one of the things, when I was thinking of spark, one of the things you said, and I'm going to really loosely say this, and I will try to repeat it just going into the next show. So I'm going to wrap it up here. You had said a quote one time talking about that inner spark that humans have. Every human has this spark. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you said in terms of loss, and this is before we had any concept of the unimaginable loss ahead of us. Yeah. So you said it really naively at the time, I have to say. Not to take anything away from you, I find it deeper because of that. And you said, when the thing about having that internal spark that every human has, to keep that spark and move forward in life, you must know that you will always have to leave something behind and take something with you through each door that you want to take the spark with you. Mm-hmm. I'm saying it very loosely. When I get to it, I would like to repeat it properly because you said it so profoundly. On that note, I want to say that when you wrote that piece about Pi, your dog, and Pi was a loss on top of a loss with COVID, on top of a loss of Seth, on top of loss of Spark Elementary, due to just things beyond your control. In that darkness, you had this bit of inspiration. And one thing I do know that I can say for sure about inspiration, even though I'm not super comfortable talking about it, is I know it's happened when a little part of that darkness in me had a little wedge of light. That's how I would say visually I know spark happened. And I think for whatever reason in that dark, dark night for you, you chose to respond to what I would call inspiration. And what came from that is that you said what you were holding for Pi, and what a gatekeeper does is they help you to prepare for the life that comes next. And I kind of want to end on that because our next episode is art. And to me, that is the life that comes next. Following creativity, which responded to
this light in the dark, which is beautiful,
Are you comfortable
beautiful
finishing it there?
way
And
of really seeing that pinpoint of light.
yes, you just, I mean, and this is all just drawn for me now because I feel I'm sitting here kind of inspired by hearing that.
Well, and let's bring it really to this moment. Let's end in the moment because
Right.
what we are doing, the conversations that we have decided to have, is really about trying to pull that pinpoint of light from a very dark time and begin to expand it, play with it, create something new out of
And
it.
it's a big deal. And I think for me moving into art, you've reached art when you're able to share that. So we'll talk about that next, hopefully.
Sounds great, Lori. Oh my gosh. As always, such a blessing to sit here with you.
Yes, I'm really happy for this. I'm going to reread it, and then let's come back and talk about art.
Okay, so until next time.
Art and everything.
Right.
And also, don't forget, you can like our page, you can share the podcast, and Strong Island Radio. You can also like that. You can always find us there, and many more talks. People talk about helping small business. Hey, guys, help small voices too. Some of them have really good stuff to say. Am I begging? No shame, like I say. No, but seriously, you never know. It need not be me or Marianne, but hear the voices. There's light in all of these shows. They're small. People don't have to be big.
Play percussion in the
Yes.
background.
Yes. You try respond to everybody. Be a gatekeeper and open that gate up.
Oh, I love it, Lori.
Thank you. Remember, please listen to your heart. Love each other.
Every day in the best way you can.
And hopefully share some art with each other if we're able to kind of outline how to do that next.
Wonderful.
Farewell.
Farewell.